Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Good morning, John
Good morning.
and Doug.
5 maybe, something like that. We're coming to you from our fabulous space here at Kaufman Kitchens in New Holland, PA. We're on our summer schedule every 2 weeks right now, so a lot of people are away, but a nice crowd is shaping up here. There's 5 physically in the room, and you can see them on the screen called Red Phone is pointing at the show and tell table. Other 3 dudes in the room, and Doug and I are here at the computer because Doug is understudying how to run this thing for when I'm dead or gone or after.
I just gotten tired of
or
the
just
rest
tired of the tired pod, yeah. I do have one announcement from the Lancaster Club. For anybody who is in Lancaster, there's a ton of wood down here at the Kaufman shop on a couple of skids that came in last spring. That is free for the taking. So if anybody is looking for turning blocks and bits of wood to augment their short wood collection, you should come on over and bring your own box and take away as much as you want. Because we want to give the space back to the Kaufmans. We're using warehouse space that they could probably use more productively than we can. So if you want to do that, get in touch with one of us, and we'll get in touch with Ben in particular. I can also send you pictures of the available wood. Send them to me, and I'm afraid I don't have them at hand right now. Okay, I think we have a couple of topics as well as a nice show and tell shaping up here on the table. How many of you guys out there in the world have got show and tell you want to do as well? Give me a signal, please. Well, Jeff Stolman, Jerry Snelson.
I got Judy's.
Bruce Lamb, and Doug's received Judy's. Did I get everybody? Okay. And now remember, the way we're working, if you're out there and you want to talk and you feel like you're being ignored or you're too polite to just jump in when somebody pauses to take a breath, raise your hand by clicking the raise hand button, which is down on your screen under reactions. And that will bring your screen up to the top of our screen, and we will know you raised your hand, and we will come around to you. Nice good bunch of people coming in. I think the topic of the morning, or the initial topic of the morning, we got a couple, is let's talk about the AAW symposium a bit. How many of you attended any or all of it? By show of hands.
John, your audio keeps breaking up.
It does, eh? That's a shame. We're going to change audio then. We're going to change to. How's my audio now?
Sounds good now.
Okay. That means for the dudes in the room, we'll probably need the mobile, but we'll get to that when we have to. I don't know why it's breaking up. It could be the battery's dead over there because I didn't charge it in a few weeks. Okay. How much did I break up? How much of that do I have to say over again?
What did you say?
I think you were fine.
Am I on the mobile now? That's a high definition audio device. That's it. That one. Okay, now I got a mic on my collar. How's that working?
Good.
Fine.
Okay. Let me see. We wanted to talk this morning about the AAW symposium. How many of you guys out there attended any or all of it? I see quite a few. Good. Kai has some slides that he prepared.
Listen, Joyce, I want to join this Zoom meeting for Woodturners.
And who's that? We got to mute you.
Bye.
Okay, he's got it. And we also have the handbook up on screen so we can look at people's handbook pages in order to talk about them. So Kai, do you want to begin?
Yeah, fine. I'll just start the PowerPoint and share it, if that's okay. Okay. So does that work? Can you see the PowerPoint screen?
Yes.
Yeah, we're seeing that very nicely.
Okay. It was my first remote seminar that I attended, and I was interested in 2 things. First of all, how the technology of Zoom is used for a seminar like this, or how online technology in general is used to organize a seminar like that. And secondly, of course, in the wood turning that was shown there and the tips you could get and stuff like that. So some impressions of the festival or the symposium. This was the hop-in symposium website, and yeah, that was really nicely done. You had the chat on one side where you could kind of interact with other participants, and then on the left-hand side there was kind of a menu to choose from what you wanted to visit during the seminar. So that.
And did you find that worked pretty well?
I find it worked well, but the only problem I had in the beginning is I registered for the seminar. I got an email by or from the AAW that said that my ticket has been activated with a link, and then I clicked on this link. I got directed to this page, and I never needed to make a password or acquire a password for the hop inside, and that was a bit confusing at the beginning, but it worked all the time. So I always went back to this email, clicked this button, and I went straight in there without creating a password, which I was told to do in the email. So that was a bit confusing, but the website, once you were on it, worked fine for me.
Well, I found I could never find that button again, but it was until I started to search for blue button, and then I would find it.
Okay, so that's the schedule from the handbook, which was really nice to have, because it had an overview about all the things going on, and it also has a lot of information about the demonstrators and their tools, techniques, and whatever. So that was really nice to have this additional handbook for orientation and additional information. Yeah, the navigation, just quickly. First, here you have got the reception. That was the page that I have just shown, or is the page that I have just shown. Then the stages. These were the two main stages, for example, where the virtual demonstrations were going on. Then sessions showed everything that was active at the time. So the demonstration on the stages, but also demonstrations by vendors and other things that were going on live at that moment. So you could just click on these and get in there. And then the trade show, last button here, that was also, or there you could also find the gallery or different galleries where exhibits could be seen, and of course the traders, and that was a good thing as well. Yeah. So if you went to this blue button here, stages, it showed the different people with their demonstrations, and then also when they were coming on stage, like Bosch, for example. No, what is that here? Alan Betty. And it says 3 hours 44 minutes. This was quite handy for me being in Europe, so I was sure that I didn't miss anything. They didn't state the actual starting time here, but the 4 hours 44 minutes told me, okay, I have to be a little bit more patient, and then I can take part in there if I'm interested in it. So a quick look at the demos. The one I liked best concerning the demonstration technology that was used was Trent Bosch's demonstration. He had really nice camera equipment, or he used really nice camera equipment, and also he was really good at handling these cameras and switching between them and stuff like this. So that was a really nice live demo without any pre-recorded sessions, just live. And he had his daughter to help him with the chat when people wanted to ask questions.
Let's pause and just see if there's any comment from anybody else on this.
He did a super job. He's a professional instructor. He never missed a beat, talking constantly for an hour and a half. It was fantastic.
I thought he was very good as well. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I think
Rebecca DeGroot.
Yeah. I think here it pays for him that he does remote demonstrations anyway. So he had a lot of experience in doing it, and he could use that during the seminar for this demo as well. So yeah, you saw that he is experienced in this kind of technology or demonstration, remote demonstration. Then another example, the Stuart Betty demo, which actually was a pre-recorded film. In the beginning, he said he wanted to answer questions during the demo, but in the end, he didn't do it, or at least I didn't get it, that he did it. And he had that pre-recorded and played the video, which was really good and instructive, but it wasn't a real live demo. The questions that were asked could be asked later on in after the demo for a 50-minute period. Any more comments on that? There's a hand from Karen going up.
Yeah, the Stuart Batty demonstration, I was kind of disappointed in that. I expected it to be about his 40-40 grind and using the 40-40 grind. And I felt with the time constraints, he tried to put too much into a short period of time, and there were no close-ups of the way his tool was entering the wood, which I was, would have helped me a lot. And then the other thing was that with Zoom, you can ask and have discussions in chat, which you can save chat. And in this format with doing the hop-on, you couldn't save chat, which meant you lost some of the answers to questions and also links to, resources. That's all I have. But I think he's a great demonstrator, but I thought it was too much into that time slot.
He was, in fact, available in the chat. I heard him type up a couple of times, and he was answering chats by typing as well.
But you couldn't watch him and then keep up with all the chat.
No, you couldn't. It was very, I found that difficult as well. Yeah. And
I could have saved the chat and I would have had the answers and could have paid more attention to the demo.
Well, we got the playback from them last night, but I don't know if the chats are included. Do any of you know that?
They told me they weren't going to.
Uh-huh.
I don't know if they changed it, but we had no control. Ordinarily, I can save the chats myself. And with this program, you couldn't save the chats yourself.
Well, that was for a similar reason that we had to cancel. We had been planning to gather here on Sunday and watch the screen together, but we had no way to get the thing to the main screen. We would have had to load one of our emails into this computer, which would have been a nightmare, or else learn how to use, what do they call it, AirPlay on Sunday morning at dawn, which neither one of those prospects was very enticing. So we realized we just didn't have a way of doing it. Whereas with Zoom, it's easy, but we couldn't do it from that program. Back to you, Kai.
Yeah, okay. So then I watched another demo by Dixie Biggs, which I liked a lot. These are two pieces that she made, which are from, I took the photos from the internet. When I put together the PowerPoint presentation, the replays weren't online, and I missed taking a photo at the beginning when she showed work pieces. Just to give you an idea what she does. And she had pre-recorded session of video as well. but she showed one session of video, and then there was kind of a question and answer session where she explained things. During that time, she was sitting at her workbench or desk, and she had sample pieces and her tools around her, and she could refer to them when people asked questions via the chat. So that was really informative, and I think that's another good way to use Zoom for demonstrations, to have pre-recorded sessions, but play a bit of the video and then answer questions and then go on with your video material. And that also seems to give the demonstrator kind of a time frame, because he or she knows how long the video sequences are, what time they add up to, and then they know how much time they have to answer questions in between. So that seems to be a good format, especially for people who are not that experienced with using several cameras at the same time and switching between them and stuff like that.
Well, the other thing that it does that's important is it allows them to edit the video, so we don't have to watch 20 minutes of sanding.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. So, and after all these remote sessions, there was a hallway talk for a quarter of an hour that you could join or just listen in and ask questions to the demonstrator, or just say hello, whatever. And I think that was really nice. Sometimes this hallway talk could have been a little bit longer, but I guess that's always the problem. If you have several demonstrations one after another, you can't make the break between them too long. So, and then the last button, the trade show, it had the help desk, the instant gallery, and also further down different traders. And I just jump into the exhibitions and galleries. Some of the instant gallery, for example, was on YouTube in form of a YouTube video, but the pop elements, for example, were in a virtual exhibition environment through which you could kind of walk and go closer to exhibits you were interested in, and also windows popped up giving you additional information about these objects. So that was really nice, and really nice to play around with. And I liked the fact that these things were also available outside the actual seminar time. So for me, the seminar started at 5:30 in the afternoon, but before that, I could, for example, visit the Elements exhibition and walk around there. So that was nice to have that opportunity beforehand, so that you could concentrate on the remote demos when they were on. Any comment on the exhibitions?
That's where Judy Stone's question came from, I think, about, Judy, you're wondering how they do the 3-camera view of the same object. Is that right?
No, I'm wondering how he did that object and how he turned it in an oval shape with all the burl.
Oh, I thought you were wondering how they organized the picture to be that way. We can bring that up and ask that question since we've taken a pause here. Doug, can you get that on your screen, and I'll spotlight you. Wait, Kai, are you, let me see. Let's come to that after Kai is done, because otherwise he has to stop and restart screen share, okay?
Yeah, I'm
We'll
done
come
in a
back
few
to it.
minutes anyway.
Yeah, you keep going.
So, and you could, as I said, walk around, get closer to objects, have a look at them. That's a nice technology, which seems to be used by museums as well, more and more, if they do online exhibitions. And then there were the traders, and I watched, or yeah, I had to look a little bit at this promotion here, and I had the impression the guy talking, he had done that very often before, and he was really kind of yeah, interesting, or yeah, it was really kind of interesting to watch him and hear his comments on the I think it was kind of a bandsaw sledge that he wanted to sell for resawing material. But that was really nice. It could have been outside the main demonstration time, so that was during that time. So I just watched a little bit of that, and then I went back to the remote demos. And then there was an instant gallery critique that I visited as well, or watched as well, which was kind of interesting, hearing people discuss objects and criticizing them a little bit, saying what could be done better or making suggestions. But I think all in all, they were quite fair concerning the makers of the objects. So I like that as well.
I found it very slow, but that's me. Vasco, you had your hand up?
Yeah, what were we just talking about before this?
We're at
Not
the
the instant
AEW, we're at the
Trade
AEW
show.
symposium.
Trade show?
No, what was the previous slide? Yeah. I actually took advantage of some of the discounts on that. And I think most of them are still good. It's AAW 2021 for most of them. The ones I couldn't get that to work, I contacted the vendor, sent them an email, and they actually gave me a different discount code. So they're still doing it. It's still live.
All right.
Yeah. Okay. Unfortunately, that's not interesting for me, as I would have to pay postage, packaging, and taxes if I order from the United States to Germany, and that's too much. So even if I get a discount, it's not interesting. But I guess that's a good chance to get a discount if you live in the States. Yeah. Okay, so that was the instant gallery critique. I have some more photos. So if you're interested, or more screenshots, if you're interested, at some point, maybe we could discuss the objects ourselves, what we think about them, and yeah, just.
Do you want to talk about any more of the demonstrators, or the presentations, or the program overall?
No, I think now I have another 5 screenshots of the gallery, but I think we shouldn't do that now, because there are other things you wanted to talk about. Just an idea. If you're interested, at some point we could talk about some of the objects in the instant gallery, and I think could take some screenshots.
Since you're up on screen right now, go for it, Kai. Let's carry on.
Yeah. So
Sure.
So any comments on this one? What do you think about shape and wood used and decoration used, stuff like that?
I like that one myself. I think it's very handsome. Yeah. Vasco?
Yeah, they talked on this one basically about the base, and I think it's a really attractive base on this one. Yeah, they like the simplicity of the top and the striking red stripe, but mostly they focused in on the base. They said usually it's unusual for them to see a display of the base, but with this one, it was well worth it.
Yeah,
it would have been interesting to see all the pieces they ruled out that made this. These were the ones that made the cut, and I was very curious as to what didn't make the cut.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I liked it as well that they had a photo of the base in it. Often you look at work pieces on photos and you just see the top, and then I wonder how do they do the bottom? What does it look like from the other side? And especially how do they do the base, for example? And this is really detailed and crisp detail on the base. So I like that as well. Okay, shall I move on to the next
Yeah, sure. You
slide?
got the
Yeah.
screen share. Carry on.
So another object they picked for the critique. Any comments on that one?
Sure looks like a bird's nest.
Yeah, that's right.
You can, but it's over here.
More comments?
Like to see the base of that.
Yeah, that's what they wanted to do as well, but that's the problem. If you just send in or hand in photos, they couldn't kind of turn it around and look at the base. That's what they said during the critique as well. Yeah, but it's a nice contrast between the kind of more natural outside and then the inside, where you can actually see the fresh wood exposed and the color difference. So that's I like that as well.
I do too.
And I often get pieces chunks of wood, and I don't know in the first moment what to make out of them. So of course you could cut them into pen planks or something like that, but that's kind of wasting the potential of the wood. So even with pieces that you cannot use to make a bowl in the traditional way, maybe you can still produce interesting objects. Yeah, so that's nice. There's another. Ken, yeah.
Ken, you still making a comment, or is your hand just
Yeah,
still up?
yeah. One of the nice things that worked, John did a really good job on this, by the way. And one of the things they did is towards the end of the critique, a lot of the artists actually got on and started typing some information. It'd have been nice if they would have been live to be able to answer some of the questions, maybe. I don't know if that would have been a nightmare for the team, but it was nice to hear from the artists as they were doing the critiques.
Well, that's how it is when the live symposium is you can see all of the work and they select some of the work. And then in the critique room, the artist is almost always present to answer questions and take his lumps.
You know, I think we're all still in the learning phase of this, and maybe if we have to do this again next year, more ideas will come up.
Well, I think that there's a real advantage to continuing to do it this way along with the live show. I mean, you could bring in a hell of a lot more people with a virtual symposium, and there will be people who want to attend, and there will be people who want to attend on video. And I'm hoping they manage to find a way to have it be a hybrid event.
Yeah, that would be great for me as well. Being in Germany, it's not that easy to attend a symposium in the States. And also, I like the idea of having replays for the symposium, because normally if you go to the symposium, there are lots and lots of things going on at the same time, and you have to choose what to watch, and you cannot do everything. And also after a certain time, you're getting really tired, and it's difficult to concentrate of what you can see there, because it's just too many impressions at the same time. And with being able to watch the replay of things, you can have the whole symposium at your pace and watch it again. So that's really really nice about the online symposiums. And I hope there will be another one next year as well.
Yeah, plus also to attend in person, it's going to be $1,500, $2,000 by the time you do hotel, meals, travel. It really adds, and then the symposium fee, it really adds up. And that's more than I want to give it most years.
By the way, does anyone know how many people attended the virtual symposium? Or
I haven't heard that yet. Does anybody else? No. Okay.
Yeah, I heard over 3,000 is what because I asked the question like halfway through the second day.
I think that tells you right there. Normally 1,000, 1,500 is large for an in-person symposium.
Okay. Yeah. Well, let's hope that they have something similar next year. Right. To the next work piece, or pieces, more than one. Any comments on that one, or on these? Sorry.
I want to know how many times he went through the bottom before he got to the point where he could make 7. I still have difficulty making 3, let alone 7 out of the same piece.
I make them out of different pieces. They just look like they came out of one piece.
Maybe that's the trick, yeah. Okay, I just carry on.
Yeah.
So something totally different. What about that piece?
To my eye, this is an example of utterly pointless work, but I'm kind of prejudiced.
This is one of the ones where I would look at it and say, this is more of a carving than a turning. The turning is almost incidental, though you know, it's not. It's still got to be a nice uniform hollow form to make it.
It's beautifully done. I got to say that. Vasco, go for it.
Yeah, they said it looked a lot like a piece of clothing in the middle view. It was almost like a, you know, display of a dress with fancy scarf on her and stuff. So I thought that was interesting. I didn't see that until they talked about it. And they really liked the top on it too. But they didn't like the feet, which I didn't think were so bad. I don't think that was but they said that would take it from a, you know, a really good piece to a museum piece if they had worked on the feet a little bit.
I think the feet are part of what make it look like a person. And I think that's one of the things we don't see much of is anthropomorphic work in the turning world, which I think is a loss. I mean, in art, you only really have 2 subjects. You got people and you got landscape, you know.
I saw this as a penguin, but they didn't pick that up at all. And they were very critical of the shape of the feet. And I really disagreed because I thought it fit very well with the piece. They wanted them rounder and such. And he even carries the curve down below to the base of the vessel. I thought it was very well shaped, proportioned, and I just didn't get what they were going about with the feet. I didn't see that they would be improved by being round.
I thought it showed a lot of forethought just to be able to come up with those feet before you were cut it off. Because me, I probably would have just made it flat.
Okay, I just go on to the next one.
Go for it. Now, this is the one you were asking about, isn't it, Judy?
Yes, it is.
And your question is, how do they do that?
Right, and I didn't understand what they were bitching about one part being too thick.
Yeah, they were talking about the wall thickness not being uniform, which is pretty tough for me to pick out. Yeah, right about there, I think, is where they were pointing. I thought that was a little over the top.
But how did they do this, and how did they get it oval and not have it shatter? I didn't understand.
I suspect there's a lot of empty space around the edge with the natural edge on this. But if I could comment, when I've done things like this on the lathe, what I've done is take the 3-inch wide packing tape, you know, the cellophane packing tape, and wrap the outside of the piece. So I finish off the outside of the piece first, you know, so the outside is absolutely done, and then wrap it in wrapping tape so that it can't explode. And when you do that, you know, and it's well wrapped, you can actually get quite thin and quite a large piece to keep it. But you know, the other thing about that whole thing is it shows you how much the inside tooling handle control is, because even with it wrapped in that level, if you get even the slightest catch, it'll break the piece off inside. You just can't stress it.
Ernie? On over, go for it. You have to unmute, Ernie.
Yeah, all right. I watched Rudy Aselnik, who was one of my mentors, do these kinds of pieces quite a bit, long before you had laser guides for the tool inside. And he would do just what Doug just described. He would use duct tape in those days. And he would then turn around and use Xylo or xylene, release the duct tape without harming the piece. But I have a piece that's a poplar burl that he did like this that's very thin. And again, very uniform wall thickness. But nowadays with laser guiding of the tools, the problem isn't so much guiding the tools, it's structural. But Rudy did most of his in the final stage pretty much with very small radius scrapers, but conventional scrapers with a burr, not carbide scrapers.
And Ellsworth uses very small machinist tools where they're tiny little tip, same thing.
So I think Judy's question though is more about how oval it is, but I'm not sure it, it could, the piece obviously could have moved after it was made, but I'm not sure it's as oval as the big picture looks. If you look at the other two pictures, it's not that oval. So I don't know how much of it is photographic distortion or how much of the piece moved after it was dried, but it's.
I suspect it was movement as well. It was round originally when it was turned.
But don't the other two images look pretty round?
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, the
Harvey-
piece is called oology, which is the study of eggs. So it's, I imagine that means it's probably egg shaped.
It's also not very big. 6 by 9 by 9. It's not huge. Harvey Porter, you got a comment?
Yeah, I do. One of our turners in our club is very accomplished at similar hollow forms, and he often talks of creating a bridge around the bowl, and he hot glues pieces of wood around to hold that piece intact, and then uses alcohol to remove the hot glue when he's finished doing the turning. But the duct tape would kind of cut the corners on this piece the way it is. So as you're turning the inside, you'd end up shredding the duct tape as you're trying to turn the inside. So you need something that would be solid, bridging that gap in order to keep it intact.
Excellent idea.
Okay,
Yeah.
next slide.
Okay, actually, that's number 6. Yeah, that's the last one.
That's pretty.
We got show and tell in the room that we're going to go to next. So
Yeah, any comments on that one first or before we finish?
Pretty piece of wood.
The coloring is beautiful.
Yeah.
I suspect there's some dye in that.
Yeah.
And it says stabilized wood, so anything can happen. But it's very pretty. Anybody
Yeah.
else?
The talk on that one was, they didn't know if it was natural edge or whether it was carved. And the artist came on and he said it was a natural edge top. That was one of the things they didn't really love about it.
Looks like it has resin in it.
Yeah. Stabilized. It's got something in it, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, okay, so that's it.
Yeah, let's end the
Sorry.
share. Okay. We could go on about the symposium a bit, but we got a lot of pretty nice looking show and tell here in the room, as well as I had a bunch of hands on screen. And since we got people who made the trek out here to New Holland, I'm going to turn the floor to them for the next 15 or 20 minutes. Is that okay with you guys?
Excellent.
Okay.
You're in charge.
Well, no, you are. So let's go to, let me see, I'm going to go to this camera. Doug, can you work us around so that this camera becomes the spotlight camera? And let's you guys go with those pieces on the table. You got the talking stick there on the table? Yeah, you talk into that.
Okay.
And you pick up whatever piece you want to talk about.
Okay. I have 3 pieces. The 3 are a little bit different than I'm accustomed to because I had some help from my brother, who's an architect and very artistic. And so he looks over at me and always has something different and better, quote unquote. But the pieces that we have, the first one is poplar. And he had this shape made first. And then he did all the painting of this. So that was something really pretty nice.
That's beautiful painting. How did he do it?
He took out some paint And he put one over, some over here and some over here, and he took out his little brush and went.
Beautiful piece.
The next piece, this was poplar, and this is just pine. These two pieces I'm going to show you, and we're able to get quite a few, an awful lot of wood that comes to us, and we can just take it off of the shelf and do what we want. So I wanted to use some pine because it was easier on the end grain to sand it down. And so this is 11¼ inches in diameter and a little over 6 inches high. And as you can see, very pretty. And again, Arthur had the two different colors, the red and the blue. And even though it's not perfectly Norwegian, he had those colors because we're Norwegian. And finally, this was the piece that I did most recently. And again, it was the pine. And there were 4 pieces there. And I was able to shape them nicely. Again, it was about 11¼ inches in diameter, about 4 inches high. And so this one, Arthur said, take a V point and put it in there and he would paint it. And that's the way it turned out. Really kind of pretty. So that's it.
Very nice. Any comments or questions for Roy? Okay, next. This is Loy.
Yes, good morning. I'm one of the newer members here. I'm just getting started. Roy's been my inspiration, my teacher, my mentor, whatever you want to call it, but he's been a real help. So I have just been taking wood and just experimenting. This is a plywood vase. And I just laid a 3/4 inch, I think it's called Baltic birch, laid it up and it came out pretty nice. The worst part of it is when you try to get at the top where you try to get a real thin edge, it tends to chip out. I have to work on that a little bit. I had filled it in, but when I sanded it, it came back out. So that's a little rough in the edges.
So how hollow is that? How far down does that hollow go?
It only goes about 4 inches.
Okay, so the piece is not hollow, it just looks hollow.
It just looks that way, yes.
Yeah.
Because I don't really have access to anything that would go in that deep and make it like I would want it to. So it's really not more, it's more of a candle holder than a vase. But then this is other plywood and I glued it up the other direction. And there again, it's just an interesting piece. And the cherry base was a piece of scrap I found in the trash bucket. So I made a nice little base with it. And then I made a little lid that fits on top of it.
Put it on, let's see.
It's nothing special. The worst thing about working with plywood, you've got all those soft layers of like cardboard or MDF or whatever's in a lot of it, and it chips out and it's got cracks and checks and everything in it. But it's the character in the piece, I guess you would call it. And then this is a piece I finished that I salvaged from somebody else. He had started it. He had cut out 3 rings and glued them together and he didn't like it, so he threw it out. So I absconded it. It's 2 different pieces of black walnut and a cherry. And I think it just came out to be a very lovely bowl.
Comments for Loy, questions for Loy? Okay, who's next?
I just have one piece. It's not really, I've been, I'm going to be working the Pennsylvania Ren Fair. I'm going to be working the Pennsylvania Ren Fair this year. And they want authentic pieces, obviously. So for my wood dish, I made a wood dish, but what I did differently on this one is actually just use straight beeswax to as a polish. Never used just straight beeswax before. So I just sort of took a hunk of beeswax and rubbed it on the surface and then took a cloth and just let it melt it. And it actually worked quite nicely. The only real thing I think with beeswax compared to the carnauba is it's just got this slightly sticky feel to it. But that'll probably wear off anyway when you get the excess off.
What are you going to do? Eat your hamburgers out of that?
Well, I'm allowed to take my lunch, but I'm not allowed to have a lunch bag. So if I want to take and put my sandwich in there and then go outside on the Shire and eat it or anything I want. And also I have a bone spoon. Has anybody ever seen that? These being made, you heat the bone up and it'll actually make a nice curve shape. So yeah, I can eat my hamburgers, ice cream, anything I want out of that I get delivered on the Shire. It also has, you can put a turkey leg in there if you want to. You have some.
How many layers of wax did you put on?
I'm not sure. I only did one layer, but when you put it on, it gets on pretty thick, you know. So it wasn't really a matter of how many layers is out to make it not too thick. And that was, I sped the lathe up to, it was on low speed, so I sped up to 1,000, 1,200 RPM, and let it heat up intentionally, you know, so that it really melts, and you can see the difference almost immediately. And then you can actually see quite easily when you do that the thickness differences when you're looking at it around there. But if I look at it closely, there are a couple spots where even then it is a little bit thin in spots.
Okay.
Your turn, John. You've got a microphone on you.
Yeah, no, but I'm not going to do that. I'm going to go to this guys on the screen now. So let's see what we're going to do here. We're going to remove the spotlight from that, and we're going to go back to gallery view if we can. And who on the screen had stuff they wanted to show us? We got another 15 minutes. Okay, Bruce Lamb, let's go to you. You have to unmute. Unmute.
I have unmuted.
Gotcha. Okay, go for it.
Let's see, Finder, resin, share. Okay. So you should have a slide. Do you hear me all right?
Yeah.
And the slide is up.
Yeah, now we got it. Just a second. We got to get the slide positioned how we want it. There we go. Okay.
So I don't know that I ever shared, but I am a polymer chemist. So maybe for that reason, I stayed away from resin for a while. But I finally thought I would try a couple composites with some burls that I've had laying around. There's a new book out by Keith Lackner talking about resin, and he has the idea to use these concrete forms for casting, which I thought actually worked out really well. And they have a coating on the inside, so the resin didn't stick to it very much at all, and just have an MDF bottom on the mold. And so this is a casting fresh with epoxy resin, which Keith doesn't go through in his book very much at all, with some Australian burls that I had laying around, and I used a couple different kinds. What I thought was interesting was I had poured 2 different colored resins into this form of blue and gold. And originally I only saw the blue, and I said, what's going on here? And about 2 hours later, it started to look like this. And eventually when it cured up, it looked more like this. And I believe it's probably the thermal energy you get from the resin curing, warming up, probably causes some mixing to occur, and things change quite a bit. And
what's that arbor or chuck you've got parked up there? The black thing.
And it did change color, not because it changed color, but because I changed weights. But occasionally when you have resin and wood, the wood can float. So I did glue the burls down to the base, but I also put a weight there just in case. That's all that was, which turned out not to be needed. And epoxy resins cure very, very slowly. This one takes about 3 days to cure. And you can see on the next day, this is not done in a pressure pot, and there's essentially no bubbles in it. I didn't trust the mold, which is glued in, so that's why there's a pan underneath it. But in this case, it held very nicely. So here's the form kind of cleaned up and now made level on the top. And then it went on to the lathe. Because now I had to take the MDF, which was glued to the mold, off on the lathe, and now it's mounted again. And I gotta say, I don't really enjoy the turning of resin. I think I spent too many years learning how to cut. Now with resin, you really have to scrape, and it does best, particularly epoxy resin with carbide tools, to get to a shape. But this is kind of what it looks like off the tool. You can see there's some minor chip out on the bottom here, which did come out with sanding. But otherwise it cuts pretty cleanly, and the burl cut cleanly. But this was all done with carbide tools. And then that same form though, when you shine it up, is an amazing difference occurs simply as you change the optical properties. And there you can see the blue and the gold comes through with blue and yellow kind of giving you a green to some extent is kind of how this plays out. So flipped around on the lathe, you can see the lights going right through it. You get the variation in color, and then I turn the top. And eventually came to a nice OG kind of shaped platter. This platter, it's about 12 inches in diameter. And that's kind of how she all looks from the other side. And I think I had one more view, didn't I? Yeah. And that's kind of my first effort in a major resin piece. I've got a few more I'm going to try next.
Any questions for Bruce? Go ahead, Loy. You got the microphone in your hand.
I've been watching fellows on the internet carving or turning with this resin. Do you notice any big difference in the way the tool handles when you go from wood to resin or the other way around? Does it want to grab on you? Is it like hitting a speed bump or anything like that?
So I tried cutting this with gouges, and I found it almost impossible with standard high-speed steel kind of gouges. And I find it does much better when you use a carbide tool in a scraping motion and you pull it off slowly. I've used some more aggressive carbide tools when you got to get down a little further, but it tends to chip out and make a pretty big mess fast. And you have to be careful. So I got to say, I don't enjoy cutting this as much as I cut wood. But with carbide tools, you can at least get through it. But it's a go slow kind of process.
Is it the carbide tool or the scraper that's more important?
I think it's a little of both. I have tried steel scrapers with a little, or I guess M42 scrapers a little bit with it, but I think the carbide just works much better.
Conover? Unmute.
I've played around a little bit with plastic for some articles that Rockler wanted me to write. And I shy away from plastics just on the fact that the world is awash in them. But it really, machining this stuff, and that's the right term, is like machining brass. And brass likes a -5-degree rake. If you put 0 or uphill, it'll grab the piece right out of a metal lathe. But -5, it goes beautifully, and it's the same with all of these resins. In fact, Easy Wood Tools has a patent on a negative rake scraper that they sell for doing this, and it does work better if you present it level. But you can take any carbide scraper and present it downhill and get the same thing.
Yeah, all resins are not created equal, and a lot of people that work in Alumilite, which is a polyurethane resin, is quite different than an epoxy resin like this, which is a lot tougher. I think people generally call these plastics whatever, but there's a number of materials out there, and they are quite different.
You have to change the speed of your lathe?
I don't know that I found the right speed yet. In Keith's book with cutting polyurethanes, he says you want to go very fast. I didn't find that so true of epoxy, and probably because you generate too much heat. But I was probably doing this around 1,000 RPMs. I was not trying to go much faster than that.
Snelson, are you commenting on this, or are you wanting to show your own work? You have to unmute.
I'll show my own work.
Okay, we'll come to you next. Vasco?
Yeah, Rebecca DeGroat had a really nice demo at the symposium. She used the Illuminate, and that actually inspired me to go out and try some of that. So I'm kind of curious to see how that works out.
Yeah, with Illuminate, you even have to be careful because they're selling epoxies as well now. But I do believe she uses the urethanes. And
Yeah,
her forms are fairly small, but she's very clever in what she does with it. Absolutely.
Yep.
I have to ask, when you sharpen a scraper for brass or this, do you leave the burr on it, or do you sharpen it and take the burr off?
For metal machining, you work without a burr. And every substance has an angle which will raise a chip. And with brass, it's a -5. And then you have the added problems of lubricants. When you add lubricants, the angle changes dramatically in substances. For instance, you can only raise a chip with steel to 0 degrees. And if you go negative, you can't. But in modern machining, they add a coolant to that and you still raise a chip, and you can make a carbide insert, which is ground square on the edges. And by pointing it downhill 5 degrees, you can use 3 or 4 sides on the top, turn it over and do the same thing again. And so far in the world, power has been cheap. So we don't mind the extra power it takes in machining steel.
So on this, if you sharpened an M2 scraper, you would sharpen it and take the burr off.
I believe that would be correct. I haven't tried it both ways, but I will one of these days. It's an interesting point.
A carbide scraper does not have a burr, right?
Right.
Correct. And I sharpen these ones. I do sharpen the carbide just flat, and that seemed to work just fine.
Yeah.
Jim Duxbury, this is your first time here with us, is it not?
Yeah, did you notice? Yeah, Bill Blasek gave me this, and then he didn't show up.
Where are you coming in from?
I'm from North Carolina.
Cool. Glad to have you.
And I totally agree with Kai on the, he talked about international membership. I think it's fabulous. I started turning, I belong to 5 clubs and 4 of them are in North Carolina. Then I thought, well, why would I Zoom with North Carolina clubs? I know all those guys. So I just love Zooming with foreign clubs. I've learned, I can almost speak English now. I listened to it long enough. But it's been a great resource, and this is fabulous. Now I look forward to it.
Welcome aboard. I'm going to give Jerry Snelson the floor for a minute here because he's had his hand up for a while. Jerry, what do you got?
Can I share screen?
Yep.
Okay.
A sec. I'm on the Zoom ratio is bad at my end. Okay.
It's this one right here.
Yep.
Okay. I'm doing some bowls and in the English style with painting. Here's most of these pieces that Garrett gave me, or Judy and Mark. And this is a little fir, spruce, not sure which, a little bowl. And then this one, I think I call it kapow. And then this one is a burl, and Gerald said it's from an apple tree. And then this one is a platter of walnut, and this one is maple.
Those are beautiful colors. Those are really lovely colors. How are you getting them?
Oh, that's easy. You buy Joe Sonja iridescent paints, and what I do is put a blob down, and with an airbrush, no paint in it, just air. I push the paint around, and you have to start on a dark background like this black one here.
That's really nice.
And then the rays, you can figure that out. That's just spinning the lathe up pretty fast to shoot paint around. And I discovered that you can start the lathe fairly slowly and then go around. Stay out of the way so you don't get spattered. Go around and look at it, and it will have moved a little bit. Then you can advance the speed a little more, and it'll go out as far, by stages, by steps, because it takes a little while to dry. And then if you spin it pretty fast, it goes out like this one. This one is actually 3 colors that are out there.
Do you now put a top coat over that paint, or is it the paint the
Yes,
final?
yes, yes.
And what's
Def-
the top?
Clear lacquer.
Okay.
And I use yogurt grit after that, and then an X product for restoring, finishing and restoring, X finishing and restoring. So I have the lacquer in there to make it hard and safe, and then I get a really high shine with Yorkshire grit and Axe product.
Very nice.
And,
Questions for Jerry?
Sir? Oh.
Any questions for Jerry?
Just one
It's a
question.
beautiful result.
Yeah.
What's your
Thank
air
you.
pressure? What's your air pressure setting when you put it on the blob of paint? Is it very low air pressure or just a
30.
30 psi?
Yeah. Yeah, 30 psi. I have my mentors in England are Mick Hanbury and Martin Laban Smith and Stuart Farini and Gary Lowe. And then in this country, if you watch Tim Yoder, it's called The Cloud, where he imitates Gary Lowe, and he does everything for you and shows you how it's done. And his is mostly like this one without rays. The rays, I don't normally put those rays on this one, and my wife doesn't like it. But, I was satisfied with it. Here's one without the ray.
I like it better with the rays. Those are beautiful pieces.
Thank you very much. So
Yeah.
I'll
Very
share.
nice. Indeed.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jerry. I'm going to have
Thank
to
you.
I'm going to pull the plug on the hour now, since we're gone past the hour, and we pretty much hold to starting and quitting on time in this group. Thank you all for joining us today. And for those of you who had work to show who didn't get a chance, bring it along in 2 weeks. We'll be back in 2 weeks. The date will be, I don't know, early August sometime. August the 5th at 10 o'clock in the morning, and we'll send our emails out as usual. I'll be posting the video from today, well, sometime on the weekend. And with that, thanks to all, and see you later.
Thank you, John.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Thank you.
John,
See you in 2
thanks,
weeks.
Doug.